Welcome to another episode of Mexican in the Kitchen. Today I have one of those really traditional but still quite simple recipes. I'm going to make agua de horchata or horchata rice water. I'm going to start with 2 cups of long grain rice. Usually I would use 1 cinnamon stick, but in this case these were quite small, so I will use 2. Now we need some hot water. I'm going to use about 4 cups. We use the hot water because it will soften the rice and it will also make some kind of cinnamon tea and it will give a lot of flavor. If you have a really nice blender, one of the high-end ones, then you might be able to skip the next step. What I mean with high-end is one of those really powerful ones in which you can throw the rice and turn it into powder. I mentioned this because sometimes even the mid-range ones cannot do that, and that's why we are softening the rice. As you might already know, my blender is not the best, so what I'm going to do is to cover my bowl. I'm using this kitchen plastic, but of course if you don't have this you can also just place a plate on top and that will be enough. I will leave this here overnight and tomorrow I can come back and continue with the process. The next day or after around 8 hours you can check the rice and this is how it looks. It smells quite strong like cinnamon, it's really nice, and also the rice has grown slightly. You won't feel immediately that it's softer, but this will be already way easier for the blender. Now we're going to our blender. If your blender is not big enough, you can of course divide it in 2 and just add some of the rice, some of the water, blend everything and repeat the process. Now we just want to blend everything. I usually use the highest power and just let it be there for 1 or 2 minutes. You just want to make sure everything blends nicely. The rice, it might be a bit hard depending on your blender, but just keep going, make it quite smooth, and then we can continue. This recipe makes a little over 3 liters of water, so if you have a jar that is that big, then you can use that. In my case I don't, so I'm just going to use a normal pot. I'm going to place a strainer on top and I'm going to throw my mix in here. I made mine in 2 parts, and even though I have thrown the first part in here, not everything went through. So for that we're going to help it. We are going to use a spoon and just press against the strainer. That will help everything to go through. As you might have noticed, my cinnamon stick didn't completely blend, but the other one did. So I'm just going to leave it like that, because also the hot water took a lot of that flavor. If you only used 1 cinnamon stick, of course I will throw it back into the blender with some of the mix and try to make sure it blends. After a while, you will notice we have this mix in here, and it starts getting thicker and thicker because all the water is just going into our pot. Now for this recipe, I would use 8 cups of water, but because this didn't blend as nice as I would have liked it, then I'm going to throw this mix back into the blender, add 4 cups of water there, blend it again and repeat the process. As you can see, after repeating the process we have way less left over, and now we can throw this away. Now we have added 4 cups of water to reblend our mix, and I'm adding extra 4 cups of water, that makes a total of 12. I will add 1 more cup of milk. Some people do it without milk at all, but this is completely optional. You can also substitute some of the cups of water for milk if you prefer that creamier, heavier kind of texture. Also, if you want to use some almond or oat milk, it's completely up to you. Now we need some sweetener, and for that I'm using 3/4 of a cup of sugar. Some people, especially if they have used more milk in the process, then will substitute the sugar for a can of condensated milk, and that's perfectly fine. Our water is almost ready. The final ingredient is just 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Now we are ready, and you might notice that the rice goes to the bottom quite quick, so you have to always mix this before you serve. At this point we can already serve this water, and we can either do it from the pot with a spoon or just move everything to a jar and take it to the table. These kind of flavored waters are very common in Mexico, but I can also understand this might be a bit odd for people who watch this from outside of Mexico. During Christmas there's a tradition of having rice porridge in Finland, and people who have tried this here have told me this is a drinkable version of that, because it really tastes very similar, and it might be a bit odd for them because they're not used to having this kind of drink with the food, but trust me, this is delicious. This is how I make rice horchata. You always have to remember to mix it before serving because everything goes down. But it's a very fresh drink. In Mexico we usually have these kind of flavored waters everywhere. If you go to some tacos or to basically any place, it's quite likely that they will have some fresh waters they make with maybe lime, maybe hibiscus is the most common, all kinds of fruits. But horchata is also one of those that people always order, and it's quite nice because it's creamy, it's still very fresh, it's kind of mild. It can be also very sweet. Personally, I like this one because it's not too much, but it's something that if you're having something that's quite spicy, it will also help because you know you're having very maybe greasy, spicy food, and then you have a sip of horchata, makes everything calm down, you can continue eating. So I hope you liked the video. Press like, subscribe, share it with your friends, activate the bell, all those kind of things, and see you in the next one.